Wow. That's the response that I have gotten from 90% of the people that I directly and personally shared what I'm going to share with you in this video. It is a radically different way to look at your current life and your future life and your formerly known as retirement, now olderhood phase of life. And I have gotten that reaction from people of all ages, younger adults, older adults, a lot of 30-somethings. And in this video, I'm going to share with you not just this approach, but the new reality that is the new truth.
Helping you find your new way forward to the best years of your life. This is a New Way Forward vodcast with your host, Paul Long.
So this is a pretty good location with which to do it, because what this story is going to do for you is give you the kind of vista and view on life in the future that you may be lacking, that I think most people are lacking. And certainly, all these people that I talked about, of all ages, that was the case for them. And I'm going to specifically be thinking about some of the 30-somethings and even late 20s people. Some of them like on the client side when I was still doing content creation for companies. And they'd be like, hey, Paul, what's this side gig you've started, this New Way Forward thing, which it was a side gig back then. Now it's my full-time job. And I would tell them, I would explain how I was bringing the new reality of longevity and aging, the entirely new way to look at it and consider it, the new possibilities, the way the world had changed, which totally allows us to redefine what we're going to do in what I had come up with, our olderhood, making it more ambiguous. Certainly, sure as hell not calling it your retirement years, because a lot of people aren't doing the traditional retirement thing. They're continuing to work or earn an income or start a business, but they're also reimagining and redefining what they want to do in that phase of life, even if it's not making any money, but it's having things like purpose and relevance and fulfillment and meaning, which when I said a lot of people in retirement are lacking that. That's why there's this trend of, people after a year or so of the retirement honeymoon are having the retirement nightmare because they're miserable, they're unfulfilled in their lives, they're lacking all of those things. And they're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I still feel like I'm chasing those things, but I'm certainly doing those kinds of things. And then I would add the other thing that I share on New Way Forward is how once we realize the possibilities and how important those things are, and how we have the opportunity to reconsider and reimagine and then redesign our lives, how to, figure that out. So you don't just pick something different, you actually pick something that's right for you, and then how to go after it. And the reaction, I'd say, from 2/3 of them was, wow, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. That changes the way I view my life right now, let alone thinking, yeah, at 62, 65, or, if they had kids when the kids are off to college, it's not just doing that retirement thing. It's like just reimagining, like, what do I want in life now? And I said, you're right, because it's your turn. And then I said, when you think about it, the older you get, the more you know about yourself and about life and about the world. And they're like, holy moly, you're right about that. Because I was just thinking, one young woman said, and boy, she's one of the most impressive people I've ever known, really, really smart, great balance, meaning she's really smart, really successful, but she's also a hell of a person. And she's like, yeah, I was just thinking about that recently, that, man, I know so much more. I think she was about mid-30s, 34, 35. She's like, I remember when I turned 30 and how much I've learned about myself and about life and how much I've changed just in those 5 years. And she's like, so well, what's it going to be like when I'm 40 or 60? And she's like, I get it, Paul. By the way, when I say that's the primary reaction, the other reaction, and I mean, I think I batted 1,000 on this, was people when they'd say, you know what, that's very interesting. I've got to think about that. And then I might see them a month or so later and they say, you know what, I haven't stopped thinking about it. It makes sense. And when you consider how the world has changed and how we have changed, when you consider that people can live longer and healthier and active, and in fact that pursuing that life that you really want with purpose and relevance and fulfillment and meaning, and you take moderately good care of yourselves. For me, I plan to live into my 90s in that kind of condition. But for my sons, who are in their early 30s, who totally get it and have totally bought into it and take very good care of themselves, and also, besides having meaning and relevance and, you know, things that give you purpose and fulfillment, great relationships and community and contributing and making a difference, all those things that we as human beings need. And that now the way the world is set up is to enable us to do that. And for them, it's being 100, as it's already becoming more and more frequent to find people who are not only 100, but are still, you know, getting around. That's going to become very common. In fact, everything that I'm talking about here is truly the new reality, because this is happening right now, and it's happening all over the world. But it's challenging for a lot of people because they don't realize it and they don't embrace change very much. But let me give you one more piece of solid insight, credible insight, and that is that just down the road here, I'm in San Francisco, if you don't recognize it, visiting my brother. And yes, these hills are steep. About a half hour south of where we are in South San Francisco is Stanford University, one of the most premier universities in the world. And they have a longevity center, which is very robust and well-renowned. And a number of years ago, they brought in over 300 experts in all different, you know, scientific and social disciplines, CEOs, health professionals of all ilks, and just also average people. And they looked into this, and they discovered that really this latter phase of life is a brand new phase of life that has never existed in the history of humanity. Now, they didn't really give it a name. I call it olderhood, you know, childhood, adulthood, olderhood. And it doesn't have the baggage and the stereotypes of being a senior or being a retiree or something like that, which, you know, just doesn't fit the model. Whether or not you're earning a living or being super robust or, you know, even having a life that looks a lot like traditional retirement. But because of this awareness, instead of just taking the concept of retirement off the shelf and doing what you think you're supposed to do and everybody else is doing, people are reimagining and redesigning their lives from a blank sheet of paper, which can include those things from traditional retirement. But the few things that they customize and add for themselves can make the difference from failing at retirement, which means failing at life, or having this phase of life be your turn. But the other interesting thing about, I got to go back this way because I don't want to fall off the cliff while I'm recording this. But the other interesting thing that, you know, I heard from so many people about, you know, this changes my outlook on life now, because in the first place, if I'm thinking that, hey, you know, as I get older and yeah, maybe when I don't need to work anymore, or, you know, I'm probably going to get tired of doing what I'm doing and be looking for something else. And, you know, I've got kids, maybe they're off to college or on out in their life or whatever. I use this terminology, and I was surprised at how many people say, you know, I'm going to look at that time of life as my turn. And that even changed the way I look at it now, because I said, exactly, you're thinking you can make it your turn anytime. It's like, yeah, you're right. Just as long as I can keep the lights on or save up for college or whatever. But you see, this opens up such a wide range of possibilities. And again, that awareness that we don't necessarily have to follow the construct and the tradition, here's what I'm supposed to do, the so-called default life, where we give in to, society and parents and tradition and peers saying, well, this is how you're supposed to live your life. This is what you're supposed to do. Hell no. I mean, in this place where I am, where, when you think of, the Bay Area or down the road in Silicon Valley, you think of great innovation and invention, cutting edge and trends. That's how those things happen. That's how those things come about. Let me give you the contrast of that, which is even more stunning. So 50 years ago, in 1975, hard to believe that 1975 was 50 friggin' years ago. Anyway, the Forbes Fortune 500 list, which you're probably familiar with, it lists the 500 richest companies in the United States. So out of 500 companies in 1975, take a quick guess. How many do you think are on that Forbes 500 list? Give you a second. 49. Just under 10% of the companies that were on the Fortune 500 list in 1975, 50 years ago, are still there. Now, what happened? Okay, in a couple of cases, a few cases, they got bought out by bigger companies. But in most cases, it was a failure to innovate. It was a failure to notice how things were changing. It was a failure to have the awareness of what was going on, and even the internal awareness of who are we and what do we need to do to be successful. Translate that into your life. What's going on? How are things changing? And how have I changed? I mean, it's like that woman said, I have changed so much in just 5 years from age 30 to 35. Well, what happens when you're 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and so forth? But we might keep up on changing trends in fashion and technology and music and whatever, but we're not always good in the, macro change, and we're not really good about changing ourselves. So much that I put out here on New Way Forward is that second part that I mentioned earlier of what I would tell people that I'm delivering is, how do you figure it out? How do you not just make a change in life, but how do you determine the right change for you and how you're going to pull it off and making it doable? Not like, you need to have a brain scan to get it. And the beauty of it is that, even if you've got a feeling of okay boomer or whatever toward older generation, baby boomers have done for what it means to be older with what they did back in the 60s, just right over there, Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco. Because in the 60s, what sex, drugs, and rock and roll and all the social movements was about was a major societal shift and changing what it meant to be of a certain age. So instead of doing what they were supposed to do, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, here's what I want to do. I'm going to design my life. And the social movements was, I want to signify, I want to make a difference. And it worked. And now, boomers have done in their 60s what they did in the 60s, which is to, as I think it was Thoreau who said, where there's no path, leave a trail, or no trail, leave a path. They've done it again, because now Gen Xers are turning 60 and millennials are 20 years behind. And so what boomers have innovated with, and what I'm doing as an outlier, is going to be the norm. This is the new truth and reality of your olderhood that can have an impact on your life right now, because in the first place, it's always your turn. But it can also enable you to redesign. And that one woman who I followed up with, who said, oh my gosh, this changes the way on my outlook right now in my current life. I went back to her and asked her, you know, what did you really mean by that, especially now that it's settled in? And she's like, it's made everything look different. It's kind of empowered me. It's even kind of taken the pressure off of me about thinking that, yeah, you know, when I get around retirement age or when the kids leave, I can do that. But it gives me a gut feeling that I can do it sooner. And this is what life is all about. This is what makes life worthwhile, when you design a life that's right for you at any time. But what it takes is the kind of awareness that I've just shared with you. The awareness of the new possibilities, keeping your head up, as well as keeping your head in terms of identifying who you are and what you need now in this phase of life, and to hell about what it was 10 years ago or what other people are saying. So here's what you can do about it. Here's how you can take advantage of one of the greatest gifts to humanity that's ever existed, that's never existed before, and this opportunity of a new phase of life that most people regarded as downfall, decline, and misery, that can instead be some of the greatest years of your life, and living the life that right now you may not even be able to imagine. So the first thing starts with awareness. You're doing it right now. You've already got it. But you start keeping this front of mind, and you start noticing stuff. And you start killing off the stereotypes and the assumptions and the presumptions or outdated thinking. I mean, here's one for you. And I looked this up to confirm it. San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley, a lot of young people, right? Well, I mean, yeah, there's several million people around here. But actually, right here, this is one of the fastest aging, oldest populations of a major city in the world. Who wouldn't think that? But what does that also say? That this is a major trend, and it's being addressed. It's being addressed by us as individuals in terms of reimagining and redesigning our lives, but also all the needs, all the opportunities to support and even earn an income, because that's another thing. Yeah, if I'm going to live healthy and active to 100, that's a lot of money. How am I going to afford that? Well, I mean, you know, I've shared before that the Kaufman Index a few years ago did a survey of entrepreneurs and startups in the United States, and boomers were leading millennials by a 2-to-1 margin with 7 times the likelihood of success. You see what I mean? And then the other awareness is inward. What do I want my life to look like? What do I want it to look like tomorrow and in the short term, certainly. But it's starting to think that, okay, maybe after the kids are gone, or I'm tired of my career, or whatever, and I could actually design the life that's right for me. You're starting to get in touch with those things that you want and need and desire and must have. Wow, that's one hell of an opportunity. Take advantage of it, because it's your turn, and it will continue to be your turn to find the new way forward in all respects that's ideal for you.
Learn more ways to enhance your life and discover a new way forward that's perfect for you by watching these videos or any others on my channel. Oh, and be sure to subscribe.